Hey, everybody. Welcome to another MVP Buzz Chat. This is Christian, and I'm here with Michael. Welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me, Christian. Appreciate it.
So, for folks that don't know you, Michael, who are you? Where are you? And what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Michael Levan. I'm based out of New Jersey in the US, and I'm an independent consultant, fractional engineer, whatever you'd like to call it, primarily focusing in the cloud native realm. So anything around hybrid cloud, app modernization, I do all that stuff. I also create a ton of content, and I do a lot of live training. So that's me working 9 days per week.
Yeah, well, that's what it's funny. And my wife says to me, she's like, well, you've been working. You probably worked 100 hours last week. It's like, who are you primarily working for? I said, well, the number one customer right now is me, doing things out there that I'm just passionate about.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, there's also, I'm not sure on your LinkedIn, do you have the open to work as well? Like, 'cause I
So
never turn that off. It's like it's always true, even if I'm
yeah,
working, because I
right.
always have side gigs or it's as an independent, I
Yep.
always have contracts I'm looking for.
100%. Yeah, so I keep that, like, open to work thing always open. You can specify, like, certain titles, like, I think I have cloud engineer, DevOps engineer, cloud architect, and then I specify, I'm looking for consulting only, no full-time unless the right opportunity comes in.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so what was your path to becoming an MVP? So tell people how long, what that
Yeah.
path was like. How'd you hear about the program?
Yeah, so I think my experience in it is quite unique. I don't know if anybody has ever had the same experience. So the gist is, and I'm happy to dive into this more, but my good friend Richard Hooper, he's a Azure MVP. He reached out and said, "Hey, are you interested in the program?" And then he reached out to, and I've gotten permission at this point from him that I can say this publicly. Uh, Gerald, he's the director of the MVP program, and he reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in this?" And I said, "Yeah, let's chat." And this just so happened to be the week before KubeCon. So he was like, "Hey, he's like, do you want to chat at KubeCon?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." And then he said, "Oh, by the way, I'm hosting a breakfast with Brendan Burns, co-founder of Kubernetes." He's like, "Do you want to come to that?" And I said, "Sure,
Ooh,
sounds good."
yeah.
Yeah. So I went. I had a chat with both of them, and there were other people there as well. A couple of other MVPs and some other people that were maybe getting into the program. That was end of November. Uh, while we were at KubeCon, Richard and I were sat somewhere on some bench, and we did the nomination thing, and I put in all my stuff. And January, I got the email.
Well, I like to say that there's no one like set way of doing it. I mean, there's a lot of different paths into the
Yeah.
program, but that does sound pretty unique.
Yeah, it was interesting for sure. Because usually, like, from what I understand, it's like, somebody nominates you, you fill out the thing, you wait for the yes or the no. That's the typical more or less path.
Yeah.
But yeah, mine was interesting. Having the director of the program reach out to me, and then having a sit down with somebody like Brendan Burns is obviously always absolutely amazing. And then getting into the program is obviously very cool, right?
And what would you say? What are your primarily your contribution types? Like some people are heavy blogger writers, other video people, others are huge in the forums. Or
So I guess the answer is yes.
Hmm,
Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. So I have a YouTube channel, I have a blog. Actually, moving forward, I'll be focused more on my blog than I will on my YouTube channel, I think. But also a lot of like community driven talks. So I speak at a lot of conferences. Like literally today, in a couple hours, I got to head to New York to go do a speaking engagement at the Kubernetes meetup. I'll be doing that on AKS and Kada, and then next month I'll be at two different conferences speaking. So I do a lot of that as well.
mhm.
Podcasting. And then I'm always posting on social media. So on LinkedIn, I typically post like twice per day, which brings in a lot of traffic as well. So
Yep.
yeah, it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. I think my contributions were pretty far and wide.
Yeah, because that's always a big question for people is like, well, I'm doing certain things. Did you find it difficult to really start tracking, like, what am I actually doing there? Was that difficult for you to kind of ring your own bell and be like, hey, look at what I'm doing?
Yeah, so in terms of knowing what I contributed the past year was pretty straightforward, like, because I'm independent, so, like, I have to
Mhm.
keep track of that stuff anyways. but talking about yourself, like, on a contribution, and because all those contributions, like, the key thing is make sure the descriptions are really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's weird, right? Like, it's always, like, I'm not the type of person that's like, "Hey, look at me." Even though I do a lot of stuff publicly, I'm also very just monotone and reserved, like, within myself. So yeah, it's definitely weird, but it's just the name of the game. Like, you have to do it. Luckily, I was, sitting with somebody helping me through. So I when I was writing something, it's like, oh, maybe change this, maybe change that. Like, it was a helpful process to have the ability to write about myself with somebody. Because if it was just me doing it, it probably wouldn't have come out as as good. So,
Well, that's what AI's for now. It's like you put all the functional, the steps and the details, the outline, and then say, "Please make this sound pretty. Make
exactly.
me sound smart here." Yeah.
Funny enough, that's what I've been doing with my blog posts. I still write all my blog posts. Like, I never run anything through AI, but
Yep.
for the SEO meta descriptions, I'll ask, ChatGPT, like, hey, can you come up with a good meta description for SEO driven stuff, like for
Yeah.
this blog? Yeah, so I've definitely been playing around with that a little bit more. And Copilot is always fun when you're writing code.
It's funny on that, as a marketing guy, like, what I do, I hire out, the people to do that kind of the
Yeah.
SEO work, that kind of stuff. But
Yep.
it's funny you go and look at, like, the patterns of what is meaningful, like, so you look at a lot of the services. I mean, you go to Fiverr and pay next to nothing and say, "Hey, I've got this piece of content. SEO optimize it for me," and
Yep.
they'll go in and from if it's a video, generating the thumbnail
Yep.
image, but creating your title, looking at your initial entry, make sure certain keywords are like kind of all of those things that they'll go in and do.
Mhm.
And you just need to train yourself, get in the habit of doing that. Like, I'm the worst on with titles for my own content in my blog because I'm not doing it for that purpose.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
more of it. I'm categorizing, cataloging knowledge for my brain, what I can't retain up here, have, within the blog. And so my titles are functional.
Yep.
This podcast on this date with this person,
Yep.
not what we're discussing.
Exactly. Yeah, so funny enough, I'm actually, I'm in the process of writing a blog post on Kata right now, and I'm at 1,600 words. It's very in depth. I'll probably hit 2,500. But what I need to do is I need to take the title and maybe run it through like ChatGPT and say, what do you think about this from an SEO perspective? Because that's what I like when it comes to like the Gen AI stuff is like I don't need help writing the content out. I just need help with like the marketing stuff because that's
Yeah.
not my forte. I'd rather run that through, like, hey, tell me a good title for this topic, and then boom, done.
Well, here's my advice on what you just said, not knowing your like the content around there is first thing, split that up into 3 or 4 articles.
Split
If
them into
there's a
3.
logical break in that, because then it
Yeah.
gives you more content to go and do that. The
Right.
other side of that is put less detail into it,
Mhm.
put the full length version of, especially if you're going to be 2,500 to
Mhm.
3,000 words long, into a free downloadable white paper if you're not doing a newsletter or some kind
Yeah.
of email list, and
Good
then
idea.
have that as a call to action in each of those blog posts. So
Right.
even though you're giving all the same content,
Yep.
sorry, advice to other people on long form content, even though you're giving to them free, spread out in those pieces, you'll still have people interested in. Give it to me in one shot, all together, maybe with some little extras in there, some additional information that's not in the blog post, but essentially the same information in a different format.
Yeah.
That's one of the keys that it's tough from, because I do content strategy for companies,
Mhm.
and in B2B especially, is that you have that great, that what I call the hero content that you've developed, that
Mhm.
3,000 word blog post. You need to leverage that content, have it
Mhm.
in different formats because people consume data different ways. You
Right.
should then do a video where you maybe demo some of the things that you're talking
Mhm.
about, but walk through. It's essentially the same content in video format. So people can read the various blogs, they can download a PDF of the entire thing, they can watch a video.
Right.
And from an contribution standpoint here, other MVPs, is you had one, essentially that hero piece of content. You did all the hard work one time, but you've got 3 blog posts and a white paper and a video. You've got 5 assets or 5 contributions from that.
Yeah.
If you're counting contributions, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's spot on. Funny enough, like it's very similar to what I did. Tonight I have that talk on Kada. So like I wrote the code, I did all the stuff, and then I'm like, "Oh, I should turn this into a blog post because like 70% of it was already done. All that code.
I've got some advice for you. I don't want to throw it on here for free for people, but I've got a tool, something for you to try tonight if you
Yeah,
remember to do this. But remind me after we're done recording. But
cool.
yeah,
Sounds good.
there's great apps and things out there to help you extend and amplify a lot of that message. So yeah,
Yeah,
cool,
that's great.
cool
Cool.
stuff.
Thank you so much.
So what are your passion topics right now? Like what are you excited about? Coming out of Microsoft
Yeah.
and in general in community? What's really kind of driving your ideas?
Yeah, it's a good point. So the past couple of years or so, I've been very, very focused on Kubernetes. So like my MVP, I'm an Azure MVP, and the subcategory of focus is Azure Kubernetes and open source. So
Hmm.
like I've done a lot of stuff in that space for a really long time. But at the end of 2024, it's like, I've been talking about Kubernetes for 3 years, just pretty much just Kubernetes. So I was like, all right, I want to talk about other stuff, but I need kind of a reason. And the Azure MVP, it just gave me an excuse to go talk about other stuff in the Azure realm, which is really good. So now I'm branching out and I'm talking about other things. I would say the 3 things that I'm really, really interested in right now: app modernization. I think that's obviously so high level, but I think that you're gonna see a lot now, especially this year or next year, where people are like, "All right, I've been running my application in a particular way. Now I wanna go and I wanna containerize it, and I wanna throw it into Kubernetes," because Kubernetes is now becoming this, like, the default standard, so to
Yep.
speak. So I think we're gonna see a lot of app modernization this year and next year. Hybrid cloud, I think it's going to be a huge thing between the talks of, hey, we're going back on prem. Hey, we're not. Like, I think that there's going to be a lot of people thinking and wondering, especially enterprises, large enterprises, like, I want to leverage the cloud, but I don't want to move everything. And I
Yep.
also want to leverage on prem, but I want to do it all in one place. So things like Azure Local, which it used to be called Azure Stack HCI, really, really excited about that. And then I think the third one is overall scalability and performance, especially with everything coming out around AI right now. Like,
That's always going to be a topic because there's
exactly.
always something
Yeah,
changing there. Well, on the
100%.
hybrid note, I mean, this isn't it's. I mean, I've had many coming from. So I was originally a SharePoint MVP,
Yeah.
and coming from that side of things, and the move to the cloud for SharePoint, which makes complete sense. I mean, even I did research that was mostly funded by Microsoft, like looking at how big is the on-prem or the hybrid footprint, and they were actually surprised by how many large organizations were looking at hybrid and keeping it. And as you point
Oh, yeah.
out, moving some things from the cloud where they've said this wasn't the cost savings, the benefit wasn't what we thought in these areas.
Mhm,
Like they blanket moved everything. And then
mhm.
they realized, it makes sense to pull some of this back and have a hybrid environment.
Yep.
I mean, look, IT is already cyclical. We know that, but
Mhm.
I think that this is something. It's for the foreseeable future. You're going to have organizations that are going to be maintaining their hybrid environments and keeping those installs going in a number of places. So
And they
it
need one place to manage it all. Like, and that's where,
that is true.
something like Azure Local comes into play where, like, literally I have an Intel NUC sitting right here. I just bought a 13 Pro that I'm going to install via Azure Local. So what I'm going to do is like this Intel NUC, which is a great use case if you're thinking about like edge computing and stuff, because this is arguably what they use. So right from my desk, I'm going to be in the Azure portal deploying something like AKS or virtual machines. It's going to feel, look, smell, taste like it's in the cloud, but it's literally running right next to me. So
Yeah.
it's very wild when you think about it. We're in wild technology times.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff that's fast paced that's happening for sure. It's
Mhm.
trying to keep up with what's going on. That's another thing that I have a lot of conversations with as brand new MVPs that feel overwhelmed with suddenly you're an MVP and you're getting these invites to all of the NDA, all of the NDA phone calls for folks
Mhm,
that don't
mhm.
know. but they're starting to they feel like they have to participate in all these things that they're getting invited to, and
Mhm.
hopefully you're not falling into that trap. Like I say, like be strategic. It's
Yep.
okay to say no to stuff.
Yeah, well, luckily being independent and working for myself, one of the biggest skills that I learned a long time ago is say no to 90% of things. So that's luckily I'm pretty good at that for better or for worse.
Plus, it seems like my recently I've been a long time LinkedIn fan, but now I'm just saying no to just about everything that comes through LinkedIn. Uh, but yeah, but I mean that is the prioritization of tasks
Mhm.
is key. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, like setting good boundaries for yourself and for your life and for everything that you want to do and everybody in it is such a crucial skill for work, but a crucial skill for life in general.
Well, that's you're right. I mean, that's a difficulty as a full time employee, where it's kind of directed from
Mhm.
on high of here's what we're working on, here's what you must do, and you might have a little bit of room to say, well, I'd like to work on these pet projects or these other things that are, maybe it's my I want to work on something that's more in the R&D realm that's look very forward facing, but most of your work is handed to you or what to do as an independent. The hardest choices are where you're looking between multiple good things
Mhm.
and then
That's right.
having to decide, I need to pick a direction, I need to pick something to do,
Exactly.
or drink a lot of caffeine, don't sleep, and do all of it.
Yep. 9 days per week.
Yep. Well, that's very much my style as well. As the remember, I had a CEO I reported to as it was chief evangelist for his product company, and he's like, Christian, you got like 7, 10 things. So what's the priority? I said, my priority is to get these 10 things done. He's like, no, you get pick, which ones you want to go and do. And in that instance, I mean, I about killed myself, but I got all of them done. And he's just like, okay, I'll back off for now. But I mean, he was completely right. I needed to say, okay, these are the 3 things that must be done.
Yep.
It goes back to that whole thing. What are the big rocks? In the container, what are the things that I need to make sure that I do first, get those things done. And I, like everyone who's independent, I mean, we battle that because there's things that I've got smaller things that are less important, but I love doing
Yep.
that always seem to find their way to the front.
Yep. Those are the things that you do around 7 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Right. Well, Michael, really appreciate connecting, and we're going to see you at the MVP Summit.
Unfortunately not. By
Uh,
the time I became an MVP, there was already a wait list for the
yeah,
in-person
that's right.
stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's rough. Well, I will say, I mean, obviously prioritize it. I'm sure you will. I think it's the best part of the award is
Mhm,
the opportunity to network with your peers and with the
mhm,
product and marketing and engineering teams at Microsoft.
right.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
but I know there's the virtual aspect. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's online. It's just not
Mhm.
the same.
It never is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's also one of those things, you throw it on in the background and you're kinda listening, but you're kinda not versus when you're in person, you're
right.
listening, you're there. But hopefully next year, fingers crossed I get, I get renewed and then I'll go next year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, appreciate your time. For folks that want to get in touch with you, where are you most active on social? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I would say the best place, LinkedIn. Just look up Michael Levan. That's yeah, that's 100% where the best place is.
Great. Well, we'll have the rest of your social links and things that are out there. I mean, looking at your MVP profile, you've got your LinkedIn, your GitHub, and your X profiles there.
Yep.
I'll find folks his other links that are out there that he's not proud enough to put in his profile. I will find them, put them in the blog post. So, but
Thank
Michael,
you
really
so much.
appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.